This is Propulsion, the podcast where we dive deep into the nitty-gritty of taking your business and your practice to the next level. Whether you are an entrepreneur, a franchisee, or a financial planning pro, you are in the right place. We're talking the latest tech, best practices, and expert insights, all while keeping it real and entertaining. So grab a coffee, sit back, and let's get ready to blast off. I'm your host, Francois du Toit. I think in today's world where they move fast, things move fast and things change all the time, that we definitely need to think about the way that we build the revenue streams in our businesses, right? And there's quite a number of things that we need to consider when doing that. Now, let me start off by saying that you can't do this if you're not intentional. Revenue streams will happen organically by themselves, but that's what it will be. It might be not something that you wanted. It might be that there's a lot more risk in your revenue than you want there to be. So it's really important that you have a plan, right? You've got to think about these things and really go and look and think about this. So there will be value today for people who are new and people who are just starting out, for example. But I think where most value will come from is if you have an existing client base already, whether it's 50 clients, 100 clients, 200 clients, where you can really go and look through where are the opportunities to maybe offer some of these services, offer some of these alternatives to how people want to do business with you, etc. But the main premise I want to start off with today is to say that you definitely want to be intentional. You need a plan. So let me give you an idea. So in Propulsion, as many of you know, like we are an education-based business, right? So we do a lot of education for financial advisors and planners at various different levels and various different formats and ways, etc. But we are very intentional. One of the slides that we have in our business plan that we review every single year, is this still what we want to do? Is this still contributing to that? Like, what are we doing? So where do we need to focus? All of those decisions come from the fact that there are two types of revenue that we're building in Propulsion. On the one hand, we have recurring revenue. We want to build as much recurring revenue as possible, not passive. Don't confuse passive here. I'm not investing money into somewhere and I'm getting dividends. That's not what we're doing. What we are doing is we are saying that there's things that are recurring. So be it the Propulsion community, be it the events that we have on an annual basis, but there's things that we do that recurs and that we know will generate revenue every single year. But I don't necessarily need to go look for new people, new clients, for example. So we can generate that recurring revenue from the same clients, and we obviously want to build out that base. On the other hand, though, because this takes time, on the other hand, we are doing a lot of once-off revenue things. And funny enough, some of the things we do on the end that does once-off revenue eventually can translate into recurring revenue. So that's also a very interesting concept. But there are things that will generate revenue in the short term. And for me, once-off revenue is a short-term thing. So we obviously need to pay bills. We need to grow the business. We need to invest. We need to hire people, all of those kinds. So we need money now. We can't wait for one day to have money. But over time, we want to move that money into more of a recurring thing so that it's more predictable. We can do the things that we do and we can grow more organically instead of, being a bit more aggressive on that end to acquire clients. So does that sound familiar, right? It's very much what you are doing probably. And naturally, you will move more into the world of recurring, but it's the level of risk that is involved in that. What are the chances that could fall away? Or what are the chances that you have to pay back that money? So all recurring revenues are not created equally. So anyway, so that's basically a very long intro to what I want to talk about today. Some of the things that we're looking to achieve through looking at alternative or additional sort of revenue streams is to make sure that you can have financial stability in your business or your practice. That's important. The other thing is, believe it or not, this can very much deepen client relationships as well. And obviously, when markets change and move, etc., it can make you a bit more resilient against that. Nothing is without risk. Let me also put that out there. we're not completely eliminating risk through this process. So why do you want to think about diversifying your revenue streams? It's not because you watch the video on YouTube and they go like, oh, 9 passive streams of income that everybody should build. Like, that's not what it is about. What it is about, that clients' expectations are changing, client demands are changing. Now, this is very much predicated on the market that you work in, right? You're probably going to hear a lot more about this from Brian Foster as well on Tuesday. But it is important. You've got to think about, who am I working with? Because if you think that you're going to introduce a different model when those clients do not have the ability to go into that model or to pay for that model in that way that you want them to pay, then you're beating a drum that nobody's going to hear. So you've got to be cognizant of the environment that you find yourself in, and nothing stops you from changing that environment as well. So very important. But that's it. I think what's very important here is that if we do that, you want to move with, and I want to say with trends, because trends for me is like fashion, right? Today it works, tomorrow it doesn't work, and we have something new, and that's not the idea. But maybe trends from a point of view is that where clients are moving to, or you think about a younger client base that's got, Igno was talking about the generations this morning, but it's got a different view on life. It's got a different set of goals and ambitions and things, and they view the world in a very different way. So they might not be open to doing the things that their moms and dads did before, and now they used to pay for financial advice. You also have to think about this from a succession point of view. How are you making your business so attractive that when somebody takes it over from you, in the real sense of the word, if they purchase your business and there's a proper succession, a proper handover, and it's like a going concern, and they go into a new growth phase with their business, that it's as valuable and as sticky as possible, because that's how you're going to unlock value. So there are many, many reasons why you would want to focus on this, right? So let's look at some key alternative revenue streams from, if I might put it that way. Now, there's more. I've got a whole list of things, but I think I'm going to look at some of these things, and some of them you'll say, but Francois, that's not what we do. Francois, this is not for me, and that's perfectly fine. But all I want to ask you is that don't say that until you have really looked at it, you've really considered it, you've spoken to clients to find out whether this would be something that they would be interested in. If you've got a specific market that you want to go into, how much do you know about them? How do they prefer? What would they prefer from these things, maybe? So very important. There's one massive lesson that I learned very recently. And when this person said it, I was like, holy smokes, 100%. It makes so much sense. How did I not figure this out myself in the last 20 years? I don't know. So I'll share that in a moment. But first one, obviously, the obvious thing that comes to mind when you think, how can I introduce a recurring revenue stream? It's obviously subscription-based services, right? So this is a little bit more difficult, I think, but there are advisors and planners who are really doing this well, and they've started doing this. So instead of looking at assets under management, they would look at they would rather look at the clients under advice and look at their income and charge them a percentage of their income for an ongoing service from that point of view. So that is definitely a way. When somebody don't have money to invest, or they start that tax-free savings account and you get your R5.20 every single month, it's not worth it, But maybe if you were charging them 1% of their income on a monthly basis, that might work. And the beauty about if you charge 1% on a monthly basis on a fixed amount, that becomes 12% over the year. In fact, it becomes more than 12% a year. But when you charge 1% of the income of the monthly income, you get that stays 1% of the income for the entire year. So that's just a number, right? So you need to understand the cost of your service and all of that good stuff before you can come up with pricing. But subscription-based services, and you can even go as far as saying, well, it's a monthly thing, it's an annual thing, but there has to be a defined set of services that you get for the specific amount. And you can also have different levels of things that you can do. And nowhere does a product need to feature in that. Again, something that Brian's going to say, probably because I'm going to ask him this on Tuesday. He's got a very specific view around what's regulated and what's not regulated. So very interesting. So when we look at alternative revenue streams, you probably want to be looking at the things that are not regulated. So very important. The other thing is to, and I did this when I was in practice the last year before I decided to sell my practice, and it was at the same time when we were already starting to run this business that we did standalone financial planning. So these are people, they don't need anything. This is once-off stuff. There's no relationship there. The idea is not to build a long-term relationship, but if you have capacity, you could say, you know what, you do your own thing, but you like somebody to rubber stamp what it is that you do, then you can come but for financial planning. Okay, so not financial advice. So we're not saying get that product, get this, but all we'll do is we'll do the calculations for you. Other than that, you must not figure out what you want to do. So that could be an additional revenue stream. But these are things that you know. So you're probably going like, Francois, but come on, man, I know this. Yes, you know this. There's something else that I want to share with you. Some simple stuff, right? And this was one of the things that I shared on the show, on the masterclass on Tuesday, is that there are certain software that you can use in order to perform an analysis that is of extreme value to a client and that you can charge for. Often we look at things like F&A tools, and we look at financial planning tools and cash flow planning tools and things like TaxSpace as that's just a tool that I use to do my job, and then you hope that somewhere somebody implements something. But yet you forget that in itself is a valuable service. If we are able to show people certain things that they did not know before in a way that looks pretty cool, then they might be willing to pay for that. So again, some of those softwares can support you in the standalone financial planning, but something like TaxSpace specifically, if you just analyze, that's not the only thing we use it for. But if you just analyze people's ITA 34s and say, let's just have a look. Look, I can't promise you that there's something we can do, but we can do a proper analysis and give you some insights from that. And it's going to cost you 500 Rand, 1,000 Rand, 4,000 Rand, whatever you want to charge for it. I mean, suddenly you do 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 of those things a month. That's a nice additional income stream that you can build from that. And it takes you 5 minutes to do. And it generates a report that you can then add a few notes to and send it to clients. So we got to start thinking about these kinds of things, like what technology tools are you using that's creating some phenomenal output and valuable output and insights that you can then use to help clients with, and you can sell that to them. Stop doing these things for free. So that in itself is already a very simple thing to do. Now, the next one is probably going to be a bit of a, you're going to go like, Francois, this is where you're now stepping outside the lines of what we do as financial advisors and financial planners. Okay, but that's my job, right? So here's what I learned the other day. I was in a mentoring session, and we were talking about, and it's not the first time, Wouter Snyman, those of you that know Wouter, many years ago, well, about 5 years ago, it was before COVID, I met with him for coffee, and we were talking, and he actually said to me, you know what, Francois, you get two kinds of sort of things, right? You either have a pain pill, right, or you have a vitamin. And obviously the pain pill is something that's going to sort out a problem that's now, and just think about when you have a headache. You're not going to wait. You want to drink vitamins until your headache gets better. You want that pill that solves that problem right now, versus a vitamin is good for you over the long term, but whether you do it now or you do it later, it's not so much of a thing. So there's a big difference in urgency there. And it feels to me like very few people, you and I might see what we do with financial planning as a massive problem that needs to be addressed right now. Clients don't view it that way in my experience. They view it more like a vitamin, probably. And that's the thing that dawned on me, because I was thinking about my business. My business is also like a vitamin business, right? I should call myself USN or something. You do things that are good for people over the long run, but very few of the things we do solves an immediate problem. This is like you get better over time, but it doesn't keep you from doing the work right now. If you were somebody who at the end of your supervision and you still don't have your qualification, and we have a way for you to do your qualification, then probably that's a pain that's worth solving for you. But for 99.9% of people, that's not even an issue today. So what am I trying to say here? This is what I said in that session, is that for a paintball, right, there's action, and you can advertise and you can market and you can do all those kinds of things. But when you have a vitamin business, right, where we do financial planning for clients over a period of time, because remember, holistic financial advice is a journey, right? It's not a once-off event or an event that I do every single time. Holistic advice happens over a long period of time. It's a journey. So for me, that's a vitamin. We make things better for you over time. Now, here's the thing that dropped in that session, is that if you have a vitamin business, the way you sell is vastly different, from the way that you sell when it's a paintball. What am I talking about? Education. So you've got to educate clients so that they can understand why it is in their interest and their best interest to do things now and not wait. So with that in mind, do you have your own digital products? Because again, I think the problem that we have is that we often think that we've got to do these things for free, that whatever we create, whatever we put out, we do it for free because we want clients to eventually do business with us. That is a model, absolutely. But I think you should also have a bit more of a funnel that you take people through. So there can be some free stuff so that they can get to know that you even exist and that there is a problem. Because the problem you have is that a lot of people think that they don't have a problem. They don't know that they have a problem, and they don't even know that someone like you exists and that you solve problems like that. So that's the person who doesn't know what they don't know, and it's all fine. On the other hand, on the other extreme to that journey, you have somebody who knows acutely that they have a massive problem. They know that you are the person to help them solve this problem. It's a perfect fit. All they need to know is what is my next step, and then everything else that happens in between, right? So we got to think about it from that point of view as well. Dave Ramsey is always a good example for me because, like, obviously you can't train people on a daily basis. So they have their own stuff that people can go through in their own time, and you pay for that. I can't remember if it was $99 or $120 or something a year that you pay to go through that. And once you've gone through that, there's things that happens off the back of that. So from a digital product point of view, do you have your own courses, trainings, videos, content, blogs, podcasts, those kinds of things? I know Bronwyn and Craig does phenomenal work with their podcast. I don't remember what it's called now. I don't know if either one of them is here, please post your podcast in the chat. But it's phenomenal what they do, and I think they've started also going down this road, or Bronwyn at the very least has. So it's really interesting that if you can do that, have you written your own little book that you just give away for free? It could be part of that thing, but digital products, because those things can lead to additional revenue streams. We don't think about these things usually. We're so used to what we are doing from that point of view. Obviously, digital products, just as a closing note on that, has the ability and the potential to reach a very wide audience, right? Because you're not limited to where that can go. And that's where the additional revenue streams, you can have somebody that sits on the other side of the world do this, depending on how you market it and how you get it out there. You never have to do any other business with them, right? But this is what you could do. So we need to start thinking about this. What if you take a specific part of your client base that you have a very good understanding for, and instead of trying to advise them one-on-one, you put together a seminar for them and you take them through a process to go and do certain things? I mean, there's lots of value there, and that's additional revenue. It's something that's replicable, is that the right word? That you can do over and over again, and you can scale it to some degree, right? I would do those things in person. So you can scale it to a certain degree, but it does take 2 days of your time or a day of your time or however long you do it for. But the value that you generate from that is extremely high. So think about those things, right? So then also another big one, which is the next one, which I don't think we think about enough. And I'm certainly guilty of, I get offers, but I refuse them. So my wife often fights with me. Why do you do that? You are stupid, Francois. But and I am, but it's because of personal convictions that I don't do this, but I should. So if we really think about referral fees, I mean, how often do you pay people a referral fee for referring somebody to you? But do you have agreements in place with accountants and tax practitioners and lawyers and home loan people and so on and so forth, where you refer clients to them and they then pay you a percentage of their income, commissions, fees, whatever it may be? The problem with that is because one of the things we've seen is like you get a lot of people who go into a let's work together point of view or an agreement arrangement. And then because money doesn't flow, nobody does anything. Everybody just continues with what it is that they're doing. So it's not as great as it should be. I just had a conversation now with somebody said, yeah, we not now, like yesterday, where they have certain things in place, but everybody actually has their own business. And when there's a need, they might use and refer, but there's no intention, right? So again, what is the intention? So if you want to build any of these things in, whether it's subscription fees, standalone financial planning, things that has nothing to do with what you do already, because what you don't want to do is necessarily replace what you're already doing. Like that for me is like, unless the thing you're doing is really, there's a lot of risk in there, then it makes sense to replace it with something else. But if you're okay with the risk, you're okay with the flows, you're okay with everything that's happening, then you definitely want to look at, but can't we unlock additional value here? And look, it might mean that you need additional people. It might mean that you need additional systems. So there will be investment required. You can't generate more income necessarily. Sometimes you can a little bit, but at some point you're going to have to invest into that process, because otherwise you are not going to unlock more revenue. So those are some of the ideas for alternative revenue streams. But I guess the big question is, yes, but how do I implement this? How do I get started with this? Because that's obviously very important as well. I think a big thing is that you need to understand, what is it that you enjoy? What is it that you are almost naturally good at? What are the things that brings you joy? And most importantly in business, what are the things that gives you energy? And you actually have to ask that question of every single person in your team, so that you know what that is. And then from there, you can decide, right, so this is what we're doing. Go and write out. So I've written here everything that we do. And you start breaking it down. And what is the ideal picture that you want to get to eventually? And now you can say, oh, I can build a bridge from here to there. This is what we need to do more of here. There's something new that we can see if we can incorporate that. So that's the starting point. So just assessing your strengths and assessing whether there is any opportunities. Maybe there's no opportunities. And then you need to say, okay, where can I go and find opportunities? So that would be the next thing. But the one thing I can promise you is that if you don't do this intentionally, if you don't take action, if you don't make time for this, it ain't happening. I can promise you that. Then also, you've got to be just careful about compliance and regulatory sort of requirements, and that you make sure that you align with those. Just always keep that in mind as well. If there's anything you're unsure of, talk to your professional body, talk to your compliance officers, and make sure that you're not on the wrong side where you think, oh, this makes sense. And then before you know it, you're on Warning Wednesday. So we don't want that. And then obviously the other part is like, once you've started to get this together, because there's more to this, right? I can do a whole series on this. But once you've get everything together, then you obviously need to tell people about it, right? Because we're creating new value here. There's a new value proposition, and there's a different way of paying for it. So now we need to go and tell people about it. So the marketing and the outreach and so creating awareness around this is going to be crucial. So very, very important from that point of view. So those are just 3 practical steps. I don't want to overcomplicate it. I think there is definitely more to it, but those are that. So really important that you look at what other opportunities exist to create revenue from your existing client base. Are there other markets that you can enter if you come up with new revenue models? But specifically, because the one thing, this is not about creating new revenue models necessarily, it's also about creating value and then a revenue model that supports that value. Very important. Don't confuse the two. So from that point of view. So I'm really keen to see what you think. Are there any ideas? Are there any things that you were wondering about? Let us know in the chat. And thank you very much for watching. Next up, the draw. Ladies and gents, that's the end of today's show. My guests next week is Guy Holwell, and now the other person's name escapes me, but I've got 2 guests next week. So we are going to talk a little bit about more of the back of what's happening at Ascend on Tuesday. So it will be a follow-on conversation from that. So really looking forward to that. And the week after that, his book is now at my office. I'll post some stuff on LinkedIn, but Errol Meyer, I think, is the week after that. So looking forward to have Errol on the show, and it's going to be great. So thank you very much, ladies and gents. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Stay safe, be blessed and prosper, and continue to raise the bar. I love you lots. Thank you so much. All right, folks, that's a wrap for this episode of Propulsion. I hope you got as much out of this as I did. Remember to tune in every Friday at 8 a.m. South African time for our live show called Propulsion Live. You can find it at www.propulsion.co.za/live. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, hit that subscribe button or the follow button and share it with your friends, colleagues, and anyone else you think would get something out of it. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.